Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we talked about this last week, that it's a baseball/softball postseason starting today. 15th District Tournament swings into action this afternoon at Allen County Scottsville. The softball is game between Glasgow and Barron. Barron and Glasgow is at 5:30. You'll be able to hear that game right here starting at 5:15 with Jay Turner on the call. The other semifinal game is Warren East and Allen County Scottsville. That game will be about 7 o'clock. And we're not broadcasting that one. We're just doing Barron County baseball and softball as our broadcast here on The Score. Unlike how we do in basketball, where we'll carry all the games, we don't do that in the spring sports. So and then at 6 o'clock today, Barron County is playing Allen County Scottsville in the baseball game in the first round. Which one you want to start with here, John?
You go for it. You're the host.
I've just flipped these knobs over here, John. This show's not about me. This show's for you, all of your fans out there. You know, I had somebody. I think they were from Metcalfe County. They were from Metcalfe County who stopped me whenever I was at Abby Varney's signing.
Yeah,
and told me that they listened to the show.
Good, that's great.
And I believe his name was Chris DeVore, I believe was his name.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do, uh-huh.
Yeah, he said he wanted to let you know that he appreciates your time on here, but he really listens to me.
That's fair.
Yeah, so I was like, no. Anyway, well, let's start off with the softball, since that's the one between our two local teams. How about that? You know, the interesting thing about that game is the teams have played twice, as you would expect. Now, the first time they played was March 27th, which was right before spring break. And Barron was kind of up and down during that period. I mean, they were winning the games, but they were kind of ugly. Even the wins sometimes were a little bit ugly. And they ended up winning that game 8-2. And at that time, Chloe Witcher was still the pitcher at Barron County. And so really the game that was, I think Barron scored 5 runs in one inning on I think 2 outs, basically over 2 or 3 errors by Glasgow that really opened the door for them to get the lead in that game. And if not for those mistakes, which probably Glasgow can look at their whole season and make that comment, if not for certain games and, you know, having a bad inning here and there, they'd be a lot better off. But if not for those mistakes, I mean, Barron was in for a dogfight with the Lady Scotties. And Ja'Kylie Green, I think, had a home run in that game. She had a good outing that day. Memphis Prophet pitched it for Glasgow and pitched pretty well. Barron's hitting the ball a lot better now than they were then. And as evidence, the last time they played, Barron County beat them 15-0 and just, tattooed the ball. So, you know, Barron, since the spring break, when they went down to Florida, I think, and lost 3 games down there, they are, I put it down here, what is that number here?
They won 16 of 17.
Yeah, won 16 of 17. The only loss is a walk-off double by, I think, Riley Jones for Warren East.
7-6.
Yep, 7-6. So, I mean, even the one loss is a game that they probably could have won. I mean, Warren East has been playing better here late in the season. But, I mean, even that game was not like they got blown out or they, you know, lost to a bad team or whatever. So, I mean, they've been on a roll. And, you know, Glasgow had a little window there where it looked like they were playing a little better, but they've kind of finished the season on a downward slide. Despite beating Caverna 4-0 on Friday, they've not been able to pick up the wins. I mean, they've really struggled. They've lost 7 of their last 9 games. And so, I mean, we're talking about 2 teams coming into this game that have been headed in different directions.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Barron is, I think it's fair to say, top 4 team in the region, probably top 3. I mean, South Warren is 1 or 2 in the state, then Greenwood. Then you put probably Barron or East, either one. Barron's probably had a better year, 24-7. 16 or less, 17, have consistently just mashed the ball.
Yeah.
You know, led by Katie Murphy. I think she's hitting 596, 7 home runs. And Katie Elmore's also up there with 6 home runs, hitting over 400. I mean, they got 3 kids over 400. Riley Reed, Nora Shirley has like 7 home runs. And I can go on and on up and down the lineup. But so they just put so much pressure on teams offensively. And then Shea Bogue, as a freshman on the mound, has really come along as the year has gone on. The responsibility has fallen on her, and Gracie Myatt has helped out too on the mound. But Shea has done a good job. In fact, in one of their games last week against a really good Clinton County team, Barron won 2-0, and she threw a 3-hitter.
Yeah.
So Barron will be a prohibitive favorite. I think it's fair to say against a fairly young Glasgow team that really has struggled, in a lot of ways, 6-18, and they did play competitively against Barron the first time, but they were not competitive the second time, and Glasgow will have to play the best game of of the year today, I think, to be competitive, because Barron, is just playing at a pretty high level.
One thing about Glasgow, Memphis Prophet pitched against them both times that they played. Addison McCoy, who's their number one pitcher, has not played all year. I did actually see her in uniform Friday, but she did not pitch, and that's the first time I've seen her in uniform all year. I don't know if that means she can go in the circle and pitch today. And also, she hadn't played all year, so you kind of have to wonder about conditioning and that kind of stuff, I would say, and just being in the game itself, trying to get up to speed if this is the first game you get to play all year. But they also have 7th grader Kerrigan Hagan, who I thought, she's had some pretty good games pitching-wise. She's young and she's not strong, so she's not really blowing it by people, but she pitches the ball pretty well. She throws strikes and seems to have a couple of different kind of pitches that she can get out there. She looks like she's going to be a good pitcher,
right,
as long as she's healthy. Mm-hmm. She may not be ready for this game, but I was a little bit surprised the second time when Barron and Glasgow played, they did not pitch her against Barron, and maybe they did that because they want to roll her out there today. I don't think it makes a difference in terms of whether Barron's seen her before or not.
Yeah, well, you got to catch the ball.
Yeah.
That's one thing. If you're Glasgow, because I don't think any of the pitchers are going to blow it by Barron, and Barron hits it so well. If you can keep it inside the park. Then you got to catch it, because Barron is going to hit it, and you got to score. If you're Glasgow, you're going to have to score 5 or more to beat Barron.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fair to say at least 5, maybe more to beat Barron. But Barron, they got a lot of experience. With they don't have a ton of seniors, but they've got experienced players. The pitcher's young.
Yeah.
But it would be it'd be a pretty big upset for Glasgow to pull it off, but that's, in another sense, there's no real pressure on Glasgow at all. You just go over there and see what you can do.
Well, you mentioned Glasgow has to catch it. That's probably the best thing for Barron in terms of their defense, because you mentioned they do have 4 seniors. 3 of them are on the infield. So you got Katie Murphy at shortstop, Mia Long, and Maudie Forrester.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about Glasgow's going to catch it.
Well, what I was getting at is Barron – Shea Bogue doesn't blow it by people
either.
No,
they're good defensively.
Yes, that's what they do, is they don't make a lot of mistakes, in the field that gives people extra bases and free runs and that kind of stuff. So whereas Glasgow's got the young team that has struggled sometimes in the field because their pitchers aren't blowing it by people, they've got to be able to make these plays. Barron's got the opposite thing. They have experience in the field with people who can make plays. And, even in the outfield, the other senior, Riley Reed, is usually in right field. Katie Elmore, I think, has played, in the outfield for the last 2 years. Gracie Myatt's the only inexperienced outfielder. She plays in the center field, but obviously she's a good athlete and does a good job. So, it's they're kind of confronted with opposite issues on the defensive side of things as well. And then, just real quick, in the Warren East Allen County Scottsville game at 7 o'clock, Warren East, I think, has to be the favorite just because ACS has been so injured this year.
They have been, and talking about, I think ACS is, at one time, they'd lost like 9 in a row.
Yeah, they finally picked up a win.
They finally picked up a win, and just the only thing, Allen does have, they're playing at home, and they have a rich tradition.
Yeah.
And I'm sure East will probably face an Allen team who's going to be as ready as they can, but Allen's pitching has just not been there. They've had too many injuries and so forth. But I'm sure East will probably face a good Allen team as good as they can.
Yeah.
But it would be another upset if Allen beat Warren East.
Yeah. Then on the baseball side, we have that Barron County Allen County Scottsville game. We presume that Eli Stamper will pitch for Allen County because as we've seen in these district games when he's pitched, they've been able to keep the games close. When he's not on the mound, they've been blowouts for the most part. And so he gives them their really only chance to win the game. And, for Barron, meanwhile, we could see Tristan Meach or Joey Myers. I think we'll probably see Tristan Meach. I mean, Alfonso's not going to make the mistake that he's made last year. He's going to put the guy out there who he thinks can, win the game for him. And I know Myers can too, but Meach has been, he strikes people out. He's also been really good at the plate here late in the season.
Oh, he's been red hot at the plate.
Yeah.
I think he's got 6 homers, something like that. This is a tricky game for Barron. Barron is 19-12 and one of the better teams in the region, top 5 for sure. And Allen is 6-24 and just had a bad year, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But you're right. When the Stamper kid pitches, it's a different story. They're much more competitive. Mm-hmm. In fact, in the second game that Barron played Allen, I think it was 3-2.
Yeah.
He pitched. And Allen lost just last week 5-1 to Greenwood, a good team. I don't know who pitched for Allen because they haven't posted stats for probably the last 15 games.
Yeah, not since spring break, I don't think.
So I can't. So I don't know. But this is tricky where Barron's 8 players, their positional players, are much better than Allen's.
Yeah.
Just much better. But pitching wise, it just depends on. The matchup. Stamper keeps them in the game. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, it may be more of a lower-scoring game if Stamper is pitching, and I assume they will pitch their best pitcher. Tristan Meach has looked like the old Tristan Meach lately.
Yeah. In
terms of pitching dominance and so forth. It's you can't get to the region unless you win the first one.
That's right.
And I'm like you. I kind of expect, because of how good the Stamper kid makes Allen much better, it's a little bit trickier. I would expect Tristan Meach to pitch, but Coach Alfonso has a really good he has a real good feel for his pitching staff and so forth. He rarely makes pitching mistakes. Former catcher in college and so forth. He kind of knows what he's doing. So whoever he throws out there, I'm sure he's pretty confident that whoever goes out there can get the job done.
Well, and we did learn last week that Skylar Potter is out for the rest of the season. So one of they're probably their number one closer.
As a pitcher. I think he actually hit against Russell County.
Yeah, so he's not able to pitch, and so. That's kind of a bump for them.
Yeah, he's done a good job the last 2 years, mainly in relief. He was tremendous last year, that's one less arm and so forth. But Barron has just played so well since the Florida trip. 10-0 against Nelson this week, and that's Colton Wilson. I think isn't Colton the left-hander?
Yeah,
he went the whole game, shut out. Yeah. And then they lost a tough one to Russell County, one of the better teams. They were up 9-5, I think, in the last inning. And Russell County had a grand slam and then scored to send into extra innings and lost in extra innings. So that was a kind of the bitter pill to lose at that. But anyway, I expect Barron to win, but I think it's a little trickier, when you're dealing in baseball. Because a dominant pitcher or a pitcher that gets real hot can cause problems.
Yeah. You mentioned that spring break. 13-4 since spring break. Their losses are to Logan County by 1 run, Owensboro by 1 run, Taylor County, which I think is number 4 or 5 in the state, by 3 runs, and then that loss to Russell County by 2 runs.
In extra innings.
Yes, that's right. And going back to the Russell County thing, they've had 2 just wild games with Russell County this year. They lost that game 12-10. They lost the other one 20-10, and that I think Russell had like a 7-run inning in that game. And when you look at like the 4th region, Russell County is always good, but you're mentioning that Barron's at one of the teams at the top. The 2 best teams look to be Bowling Green and Greenwood, and then you go after that. You have Logan County, you have Barron, you have Russell County. They're all probably right there together as well. And we go back to, you got to win this first game tonight.
And East, don't forget.
Yeah, and East they've played pretty well lately. Their only 2 losses are to Bowling Green and Greenwood.
East has got 3 really good starting pitchers.
Yeah.
They are built to, if they can get to the region, they have the pitching to actually go quite far.
Yeah. Now, I think one of their guys possibly is out.
Okay.
Alfonso, when I talked to him last week, didn't know if he was out, or if he was just, it's a temporary injury or that kind of thing. So, and I don't remember which one it was. But anyway, yeah, East, in Glasgow play tomorrow night, and Glasgow has not closed the season very well, to be honest with you.
They're 11-21, and I think it's fair to say, have struggled down the stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, they've just had a hard time, in particular, pitching. Their ERA as a team's over 6, and that's as high as I can ever remember a Glasgow team. And it's hard to win when your ERA is that high because you're just constantly battling to try to score runs and so forth. And that's probably been their biggest issue. They lost twice last week. They lost to Monroe, which is, Glasgow does not lose to Monroe historically very often in baseball. They lost 5-3, and then
they've lost to them twice this year. And I was trying to think the last time they lost to Monroe twice in the same year.
That's a little surprising. They lost to Greene County 8-1, and Greene's solid, not great, but solid. And so they're going, but it's a one game situation. I do think it'd be an upset for Glasgow to beat East.
Yeah.
Glasgow's schedule has been good. They struggled down the stretch, but outside of Monroe, I mean, they've lost twice to Russell County, lost twice to Barron. I think they lost to Greenwood. So they've played good teams, but they've given up a lot of runs.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, in the games that they've won, they've outscored their opponents more often than not.
Yep.
So the thing that kind of happened last week is they just did not score runs, which was the Monroe game was 5-3, I think was the final score.
5-3, yep.
So, I mean, that's just an indication. Their bats were pretty hot for a stretch there. Even when they were losing games, they were putting up runs. But that's part of what happened in the last couple of weeks is they kind of cooled off at the plate.
And I have no idea who they'll pitch. I mean, Austin Parker, he's thrown the most innings possibly.
He's got to be the guy that they
Davey
probably
Williams,
trust the
maybe.
most.
Yeah, it just comes down. It's probably everybody on board.
Yeah.
You got to win the first one. So, throw somebody out there, and if they get in trouble, you better have 2 ready.
Well, I joked with Coach Cameron Garman last week. I said, so is this a case where this is like a college bullpen? You're going to throw a guy out there, lefty, to throw to a lefty for an at-bat and then put somebody else out there? And he said, whatever we have to do. I mean, so like you said, it's whatever you have to do.
Right.
But, yeah, Warren East has clearly been the better team, especially down the stretch, as we were just talking about.
Yeah, they're 20-14.
Yeah, their only 2 losses in the last month have been to Bowling Green Greenwood. So, they've been rolling along as well. So, yeah, we have 2 situations in the baseball where, and really in the softball too, the 2 better teams look clearly better than the ones they're going to be playing against. So, yeah, any of the lower-seeded teams winning will be an upset, looks like. Anything else from the high school baseball, softball you can think of?
Nope. It's if you go over there, like I said at Allen, you can watch both games going on at the same time. You get the fields are right next to each other.
Yeah.
The softball field is above the baseball field, and you can actually get a spot and watch both games.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
John, other sports also have postseasons.
Yes, they do.
And the Region 4 individuals tennis tournament, and when I say individuals, that's singles and doubles. It's just there's no team score. For the first time, I guess the second time they've ever done this, Barron County coach Trina Rickard had told me that they had done this before. I didn't remember that. It must have been during some time when I wasn't really paying attention to tennis, where they had a team tournament and an individuals tournament. But anyway, and since we were on the air last week and we were talking about this, they do have a team state tournament. I think it's in 2 weeks in Lexington.
Okay.
I learned that the other day when they did the draw for it, and I find that whole situation just peculiar. Just having a team tournament and then an individuals tournament. And maybe, I meant to look this up before we came on the air so I could be slightly more informed than the idiot that I am. But I was going to look and see if part of the impetus of this was like with the golf thing when they were trying to trim the field and they were trying to cut down on how many people they had there playing in the tennis tournament over the weekend and how many matches. That's the only thing I could figure. So that you wind up maybe with 2 weekends of matches, one for the team and one for the individuals. That way it's easier to manage, I suppose.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would say the vast majority of the teams that go one weekend, they're the same players that go back the next weekend.
That would be my guess.
I mean, it's almost exact same.
Yeah, that would be my guess. So I don't know. That seems to.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know enough about it to make an informed comment. Whether or not I think it's a good idea or a bad idea, I have no idea.
Well, I'm just going to be the old man yelling, "Get off my lawn!" I suppose. So it's an uninformed comment, but it's a comment nonetheless. Anyway, on the tennis side of things and the individuals, Addison McFall, she plays again today at 4:30. She's the number 4 seed in the girls singles in the Region 4 tournament. On Friday, she was supposed to play, but the girl she was supposed to play withdrew from the tournament. The weather kind of forced everybody inside, kind of screwed up the timing of the schedules in that first round. So she did play in the second round and won that match. So today she'll be playing. I said she's playing the 1 seed, I think, and she's the 5 seed is what it is. I believe that's the way it is in the girls singles. And then also Glasgow's boys doubles, Max Hughes and Nick Bauer, they are also playing today. They are the 4 seed, and the boys doubles, they'll be playing the 5 seed from I don't remember where. Anyway, I've got that all on 104thescore.com. You can click that link and read about that. I had goofed that up a little bit. I'd missed that Max and Nick had advanced. They had a first-round bye and didn't play till Saturday. And won that doubles match. So anyway, they're also playing today. And then the Class 3A Region 2 track meet is today at Meade County. Some of the events are already underway. Most of them will be starting. It was 5 o'clock Eastern time, I believe, so they should be fully underway. Now, we have several athletes who are going to be competing in that for Barron County who have a good chance to move on to state. Brody Miller has registered the second best time in the boys 1600. Chesney McPherson has the number 1 time in the 1600 and girls 1600, and Gracie Reed is third in that event. And Chesney has the number 1 time in the girls 3200. Barron's girls 4x800 relay team is rated number 1 in the region, and I think it's by about 18 seconds versus whomever had the second best time. And I'm pretty sure Gracie Reed runs on that, and maybe it's Ella Pridemore, and I'm trying to think who else is on there. I can't. They put 6 names in there, so you could have picked from those. But anyway, they've been really good this year. And then Riley Wilson is rated number 1 in the girls discus by 18 feet. She's having a heck of a year, sophomore there at Barron County. And then on Glasgow will run their regional meet tomorrow at Greene County. Lucas Christian is rated first in 300 hurdles and the triple jump in boys. Taylor Wilson is second in the girls 200-meter dash. Glasgow's 4x100 relay is rated first, and the 4x200 relay is rated second. And then Cynthia Austin is rated first in the triple jump. We've had a really good run of some track athletes here in the last few years, John, and it looks like that run's going to continue at least for 2 or 3 more years because I think Brody's a junior, Cynthia Austin's a junior, Gracie Reed, I think, is a sophomore. Mm-hmm. Those people I just read off, Lucas Christian and Chesney McPherson, the only 2 who are seniors, and a lot of the people who are on these relay teams are also underclassmen. So we've got some quality track athletes coming through at the moment.
Yeah, I tell you what, you couldn't get a better day to run.
No, it's nice out.
It's nice, you like it to be more, warm. And, the distance runners, you don't want it too warm, but the time they run, they usually run later, the distance runners. It'd be very comfortable.
Yeah. Well, and you'll be up there by the river in Meade County. Maybe you'll have a nice river breeze coming off.
Could be. It could be. But, yeah, that's wish them a lot of luck. But you're right. We have been on a roll in our local schools, state, not just region champions, state champions the last so many years. It's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at Chesney McPherson's time in the 16 and the 3200, she's one of the top 3 or 4 in the state.
Yeah, signed with UK.
Yep, signed with UK.
Who's got a quality cross-country and track program.
Yeah. And then Brody Miller is in the unfortunate thing of being running in a group of some of the best runners right now in boys 3,200 distance runners and 1,600 distance runners. So he has an outstanding time, but, man, there's some really good dudes in that group at the moment. So he's got some stiff competition to try to win a state title. And then I think when you look at the boys' side for Glasgow, Lucas Christian, I think he has the number 1 distance in the triple jump and the number 1 time in the 300 hurdles in all of 1A, which is what Glasgow's competing in right now. So, I mean, he's one of those guys that's real close to having an opportunity to, win a state title and at least something and I think Cynthia is pretty close in the triple jump as well. So I mean, it'll be a lot of fun to see how this works out for them. Good luck to them. I think they're all right there on the cusp of continuing this recent run, John.
Yeah, I agree. I wish them the best, and like I said, the weather should be good today and tomorrow, and hopefully we'll hear something tonight and tomorrow, and I know you'll post as soon as you can.
Yeah, we'll be following along, even though we're at the softball game today and covering the baseball as well. We'll be following along with some results from the regional meet today for Barron County. You can check our Twitter account, 1047 The Score. We'll post some stuff on there, and then we'll get the update, when we can get it online either tonight or in the morning when we have the completed results. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
John, were you shocked by the Game 7 between the Minnesota Timberwolves and Denver Nuggets on Sunday?
Yes, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
I mean, Denver defending champions and up 20 in the third.
Yeah. First basket of third, up 20.
Up 20 in the third, and get outscored almost 34 points.
Yeah.
In just a massive run. So, yeah, I mean, it's shocked that Minnesota beat them. I don't know about that, but how it fell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's the first time in NBA history a Game 7 at home has been lost with the home team up by 20.
Yeah.
So it was
the two biggest comebacks in history had been 11 points at halftime.
Okay.
So they were down 18 at halftime. So that in its own right was the biggest comeback in that situation in NBA history.
Yeah, I mean, no, it was Denver, I was concerned with Denver after the Lakers series.
Yeah.
Even though they beat the Lakers 4-1, won 5 games, they trailed every game.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that was a good sign, to be honest with you. They were behind every single game. And then they got blown out the first 2 games against Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then it looked like they may have steadied themselves a little bit, and they won 3 straight. But, man, outside of Jokic, the Joker is what I call him, who had, 37 points, 17 rebounds.
And 9 assists.
And something like that. And Jamal Murray had 32.
Mm-hmm.
Their other starters were terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely terrible. Porter Jr., who is supposed to be a great three-point shooter, his three-point shooting the last 3 games was atrocious. In fact, I don't think they had another player in double figures other than those 2. So, in a rarity, the stars kind of did their thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Joker was unbelievably good as usual, but the role players who you need all 5, you can't just rely on 1 or 2. Those are the ones that really, really let them down, to be honest with you. And Denver just kind of looked, kind of exhausted after a while. Sometimes when you play like last year all the way through June into July and then come back and try to do it over again, and it just looked like it caught up with them a little bit. And they lost some key role players from last year's team too. They lost 2 real key players.
Yeah.
And they just didn't quite look quite the same. And I was concerned, like I said, after the Lakers game. Lakers, even though they beat them in 5, they were behind every single game, and that didn't look like a winning formula to me.
Well, going back to what you said, after the first 2 games, we came on here and we talked about those 2 games, and we talked about the fact that the Nuggets did not have a bench whatsoever. I mean, Minnesota's bench was killing them in those games. And what happens kind of over the next 3 games is they still don't really have a bench, but those role players played much better. Gordon and Porter and Brown played pretty well and sometimes even great in those other 3 games.
And they're not bench players.
No,
Brown
is. Yeah, he is. But I mean, basically he didn't start, but he kind of ended up being a starter.
But Porter's a $26 million a year player now.
Yeah, well, and so what the deal was is like it looked like if those guys, those role players did not have great games, they just had nothing else they could go to.
Not great. good games.
Yeah, if they even showed up.
I mean, they were bad the last two games. And they basically, and I'm never a big fan of this, in Game 6 at Minnesota, they kind of punted it.
Yeah.
I mean, they got beat, how bad, 114-70, something like that?
That's right, 44 points.
They just kind of like, okay, we'll just wait to the next one.
Yeah, we'll get them in Game 7, guess not.
And, that sometimes that bites you, and give Minnesota credit. I mean, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. They decided to go different.
Mm-hmm.
When everybody else was shooting threes and going small, they decided to go big.
Mm-hmm.
And, I did not know until I was reading about it just recently. The GM that created the Nuggets left and went to Minnesota a couple years ago.
Yes.
So, and came up with this defensive strategy with size and so forth. And of course, they got a great young player.
Yeah.
I mean, the young kid from Georgia is a fantastic player.
Mm-hmm.
And Karl Anthony Towns had a big game yesterday.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
When it seems like when he plays well, Minnesota is hard to beat. He doesn't always play well, kind of up and down a little bit. But I was for Denver, but the two teams I was for yesterday both lost.
Denver and the Knicks.
Yeah.
Well, real quick on the Minnesota side of things, there were a couple of things that I thought were interesting in that game. One is when Denver had the big lead, they did not find a way to give Jokic some rest. He rested for 1.5 minutes of that game. And I know you get the TV timeouts and the half times and all that, but I thought the things that he's usually good at as a game and late in the game, active hands, active feet, you could tell both those were lacking as that game went on.
I thought he got a little tired too. Unlike a lot of big guys, I mean, he's a different big guy. He brings the ball up the floor a lot too.
Yeah.
So he's a facilitator and a scorer. I thought he probably got a little tired, and it'd been nice to get him some rest. But as that lead was dwindling, I'm sure Coach thought his best way to win was to keep him out there, and I don't blame him, to be honest with you.
No, I think once that ball started rolling, then you couldn't. But I guess maybe in the first half you could have found him some time, or maybe early in the third quarter or mid third or whatever, you could have found him some time. But obviously, without him on the floor, they were not very good at all. So
right.
I mean, they were kind of stuck. And then the other thing was Karl Anthony Towns. He's a guy that blows my mind because you see a game like yesterday where he's getting offensive rebounds, he's defending people, shooting the ball, not for the most part, not making dumb plays other than a couple.
He can make some.
He can make some dumb plays.
He's an awkward player.
He is.
Times. He's kind of awkward, yeah.
So, then you watch him play like he did yesterday, and you're like, man, if that guy could figure out how to just do that more consistently, Minnesota would be very hard to beat. Because
they are.
They are hard to beat especially when he's like that, like you said.
Yeah.
But it's just like one of those where you have to scratch your head because you watch him play sometimes and you're like, is he actually on the floor?
Right.
So that impressed me. We'll see how it goes. They'll play the Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals.
They've already beaten supposedly the best team.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, look, if there's anybody that can defend or find a way to defend Kyrie Irving, I feel good about Minnesota's defensive schemes.
Well, I mean, they got him, but somebody's got to guard Luka too.
Yeah.
Same guy can't guard them both.
Well, is it the case that if you can figure out how to basically minimize one of them, that's your best chance of beating Dallas?
I don't know. The Dallas's role players have been really good too.
They have been.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It may come down to the role players.
Could be.
I mean, it sometimes it does. And then you mentioned this already in the East. The Pacers beat the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks basically just broke down. I mean, this is what this is, injuries.
They did.
And the Pacers I don't know how they're going to do against the Celtics. I think it'll be an interesting series.
I don't either because Boston they hadn't been tested at all. I mean, it's been boring to watch them play. To be honest with you, they haven't even been in the battle yet.
Yeah.
So I think Indiana's got a great chance early in the series until Boston kind of gets their sea legs. And after that, we'll see. But, yeah, the Knicks just ran out of gas. And I was for the Knicks because I love how they play, but I'm kind of glad they lost how it transpired because their really good guard
Jalen Brunson
broke his hand in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And he'd been out for the rest of the playoffs, and then they'd have no chance.
Yeah.
I mean, they just And that's not a fatigue deal. He slapped at a ball in the third quarter trying to save a layup. He slapped down on it and broke his hand. So I don't think that's Coach Tibbs' fault.
No.
In any way. But, they just ran out of gas. They tried to play the guy with the bad hamstring. He couldn't go. And, it's just one thing after the other. They ran out of bodies.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about the Pacers, Celtics.
And the Pacers shot NBA record for a playoff. They shot 67%. That's a record. No, in the history of the playoffs, that's a record. When you shoot 67% against a good defensive team, it's not like they were shooting all layups.
Yeah.
I mean, even if the Knicks were fully healthy, I don't know how you beat a team that shoots that good.
Well, and that's what I was about to get at. The Pacers are offensive driven. They don't defend as well, but they can put up points. I think they're the number one offense in the league.
They are.
And then the Celtics, they can score, but really they are predicated more on their ability to defend people, especially out on the wings with the kind of players they have. So that I think that makes for an interesting matchup, because the thing about Boston, sometimes offensively they're stagnant. They'll just go one-on-one.
No, they play too much isolation.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's kind of, they make it easier to defend them. It's just that they have more talent usually. So I guess that's what I'm interested to see, is that matchup in its own right, because of the juxtaposition of how these two teams play.
Right. I mean, it should be high scoring. I think it'd be high scoring because Boston can score.
Yeah.
They're supposedly a good defensive team. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, like I said, they hadn't been challenged. Literally have had no challenge.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's – I mean, it's good in terms that may help them as the series goes on because they're fresher. Mm-hmm. But, boy, they have not really been in the fight yet.
I will say this, though. This is lined up, even though I like Minnesota and I think Dallas is good, and this will be an interesting series with the Pacers. I do think the team that the Celtics would have had the hardest time defending being the Nuggets, because of, we don't know if their big guy is going to be back. I mean, I guess he's supposed to be, but we'll see.
Porzingis.
Yeah. So, the team that I thought that they would have a really hard time defending if they made it to the finals and the Nuggets were there was the Nuggets.
But not the way the Nuggets are playing right now.
No. Yeah. But, just looking at how you thought it would shape up, how I thought it would shape up. So if the Celtics don't win the NBA Finals this year, I think there's some this has been an underachieving bunch for the talent level they've demonstrated in the last 6 or 7 years.
It's right there for them. You're right. They're the best team standing. Out of the four, they're, to me, clearly the better team. But like I said, they just have not been challenged. There's something about Boston I wouldn't go all in on. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't. Something about Dallas that interests me just a little bit. They can score. I'm not a Kyrie Irving fan, but he seemed to have a transformation at Dallas. He's playing. There's no controversy and things like that. He's playing tremendous. And those role players at Dallas are playing well.
Yeah.
But, and Luka, who, has not guarded anybody in his career, is actually he's actually changed. He's trying.
And he's doing this while he's obviously not healthy, too.
He's not, but he plays possum a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll be limping around, and all of a sudden there's a burst of speed. So
it's that soccer background.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It looks exactly like some of these soccer players. So he plays possum, and there's no question he's been slowed down, but he does play possum. So it's the four. I wouldn't say any of the four would be my favorite picks or choices or whatever, but we're down in the Final Four, and it is a little bit of a different look to it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the PGA Championship, which was here in Kentucky at Valhalla.
Yep.
From Thursday through Sunday. Probably more people know Scotty Scheffler got arrested than they know who actually won the event.
Well, people who don't follow golf, that's true. If you follow golf, the guy that won has been right there with all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a tremendous player. It was his first major, but he's right there with everybody. But if you're not a golf follower, that's true.
Yeah. Well, and the sad thing about that whole situation was not Scheffler being arrested, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know, what the situation was. When you have a situation like that, you don't know what the competing stories are, so to speak.
True.
But the sad thing is, so many people were focused on him being arrested, they missed the fact that a man got killed, which is how the road was, the traffic was being directed to start with.
Yes.
Which I thought was, just a sad commentary.
Happens all the time, though.
It does.
Where the celebrity part gets overblown, and there's a real catastrophe, which is the death of a person.
Yes. The man's name was John Mills, by the way, if
Yeah,
anybody doesn't know.
And that's just that happens all the time, though. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. There was a death of a person who worked the tournament.
Yes.
He was a volunteer. And that sometimes kind of gets lost in all this other stuff.
Yeah. So that part kind of bothered me, just on the day
Right.
of what all was going on.
Right. But the tournament was, other than that, was fantastic. Course was too easy, 21 under, but a lot of it had to do with the weather and the soft conditions and so forth. But the one thing about Valhalla, they put on good tournaments. Mm-hmm. I mean, every PGA tournament's been there. It's either been a playoff or right down to the wire. Tiger Woods would win it, Rory McIlroy, and now Xander Schauffele, who's a heck of a player. So you've had great winners. A lot of drama. It always comes down to the end. The Ryder Cup was there. So Valhalla puts on good tournaments. I'm not real crazy about it being that easy. I think they can do some things to make it a little bit tougher. But it's a fantastic watch on TV.
Now, where exactly is that course?
It's close to Oldham County. It's
Okay.
on the eastern part of Louisville.
Yeah.
But and what happened with Scheffler was very unfortunate, and I think the charges would be eventually dismissed.
Yeah, he was originally supposed to have a court appearance tomorrow morning, but
It's
that's
been moved.
Yeah, the June 3rd, I think, is what
Right,
it is.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. It'll probably be dropped before it's all over with. Now, the guy who won,
Xander Schauffele.
yeah, you mentioned the fact that he's been right there, but this is
he's
his
been a
first
great-
major.
First major.
Yeah.
But he's been top 5 in 4 or 5 majors. I mean, he's just 30. He was an Olympic champion a few years ago, too.
Yes.
So he was one of the best players on tour. So he was due. He's probably, quote unquote, the best player that had not won a major. Mm-hmm. And he lost like a 5-shot lead the week before to Scotty Scheffler in the tournament beforehand. Mm-hmm. He was up 5 going the last round and lost it to Scheffler, who was incredible. So he hung in there with all types of pressure. He shot 64 on the last day to win.
Yeah.
So it's not like he hung on. He had to go out and win it.
Yeah. Well, and I think whenever he won in the Olympics, as I recall, the question was, is that like the thing where he's going to make that turn and win some majors? Because I think he had been competitive even before that point in time.
It's hard to do. I mean, there's a lot of good players. It's a PGA tournament is the toughest field.
Yeah.
It's 156 players, and it's the toughest of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you even had 16 players from the tour that people left, the Live Tour.
Yeah.
16 of those played. So I mean, he earned it.
Yeah. Have you ever played at Valhalla?
No, heck no. I've been there. I went 10 years ago and watched a round.
Okay.
But no, heck no. No. I would not. First of all, I don't play enough, and second, I would not enjoy it. I would not enjoy it. It's too hard.
Have you ever gone and played at Old Stone?
I've not. I've been there. I've not played.
Yeah, you mentioned. I mean, the funny thing is, you just mentioned it's too hard, but you thought that you don't like that the course was too easy for the pros.
No, I want it hard for the pros.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. The funny thing is, it's sort of like, the difference between how good professionals are versus the average people who think they could go and do something.
Right.
And you go and get on the course that they're going to play on.
Oh,
and
it's
you're like,
amazing.
Oh, no.
They're tremendous players.
Yeah. So I always find that kind of thing a bit amusing because I've talked to people before. They like to go play at these courses where.
No, I want to have a good time, and it's too hard for me.
It's a club chucking kind of course. Huh?
Yes. Too long, too hard.
All right. This is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
All right, John, we're going to discuss some of our local players signing to go and play in college. Abby Varney, a week and a half ago, signed to Georgetown
Yep.
College. And it was interesting to talk to her about that.
You had a good interview.
Thank you.
It's on 104.7. It's on the Facebook page.
Yeah. So you can find it there and on the website. But it was interesting to talk to her about it because, she had not made her decision when she went and played in that Kentucky-Ohio All-Star game. And as you mentioned, she didn't really pick up any, new interest, but it was just a fact that the Georgetown College coaches came there, watched, and she got to talk to them while there, and it just kind of solidified that's where she was going to go.
It's a very good school.
It is.
It's very good academically. They have a good athletic up there in all sports. Georgetown's known. And I really think the transfer portal has really squeezed out and hurt a lot of the seniors are going into college.
Yeah.
I mean, because right now what a lot of colleges do, they just look around at transfer portal. People have played in college, they can evaluate.
Yeah.
I think it's really put a squeeze on kids.
Yeah.
But I will say this about Abby. You know, she had a really good career at Barron, won a regional title. Several years ago, she was on that regional title team.
Yeah.
Scored over 1,000 points, may have gotten up to 2,000, close to it. And just she has a lot of people say, you know, that they work hard. I think it's overrated. I mean, people say they work hard. Some players do. Some players work hard during the game and practice.
Yeah.
But with Abby, she has put her time into it. She's worked on her game, not just when people show up at the game, but in practice. She's done all the AAU stuff. She's put in a lot of hard work and effort. And I wish her the best because she. If people didn't know her toughness, just watch the district tournament.
Yeah, for real.
Watch somebody who gets her nose broken in several different places and come back in the game without a mask or anything. Just comes back and plays, and that's how much it meant to her and so forth. So I wish her the best, and I think Georgetown's got a good player. That's a second Barron County kid up there too.
Yeah, Aiden Nikens
up there as well.
So one of the things during the signing day, I didn't have a video of it, but Piper Lindsay, her head coach there at Barron County, was talking about that work ethic because she said, you know, after practice she'd go run the up a deck at the
Stay
gym,
in shape. Yep.
And just, you know, she was always not just working on her game, but working on her physical nature, her body, and that kind of stuff to be in the best condition possible. And really, you know, for a kid who is 5'7", 5'8", whatever she is, heck of a high school rebounder as well.
Yes, you
know, you just don't generally see your two guards out there leading your team in rebounds in a lot of games. I mean, so it's the total package of what she did as a player.
And I don't know what Georgetown has coming back or anything like that, but I just know she will help a lot. She can help a lot of teams. And it may not be scoring.
Yeah.
But if you just tell her to go out there and rebound or the toughness
Defend.
and things like that, she will help.
Yeah. And then John Carter Walbert signed with Transylvania.
Another great school.
Yes. Yes. And so, you know, when I'm talking to him about that, you know, that's not one of the places he was looking at initially.
They've got a rich tradition in basketball at Transy.
Yes. And, you know, so it was kind of, you know, he was like, once his dad had mentioned it to him, and then he went to visit and all that, and he's like, you know, this is a good place for me. And the interesting thing about Transylvania is that it's in Lexington. You know, you're in a city, but it's a completely different environment.
It's right behind Rupp Arena. It's probably a mile down the road.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a fascinating environment there. We had, dang, I suddenly forgotten her name. We had a couple of other people go there and play, and I wish I could think of her name right off the top of my head. Played basketball there for 4 years on the girls' team. Went from Glasgow, but yeah, Charlie. I'm gonna.
Hal, not Charlie Hal. I'm thinking Charlie. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Back when I was coaching.
Yes. Yeah. So she went there and played. I mean, had a good experience there as well. I apologize. I cannot think of her last name. She's married now, and that
Dad was a doctor, and
I've
gone blank.
Charlie Fant.
That's right.
So there you go. We worked our way through it.
I was at Transy this year, watched my niece play basketball there. So it's just a nice facility. They've got a rich tradition. Coach Lane has been the coach there forever, and his son then took over. And I think his son's still there. I'm not for sure if he's still there or not, but I think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, that's you know, John Carter had a really good. His last 2 years, I was really, really impressed with him. I just saw him mainly when Barron played. I saw a few more games. I saw the regional tournament game and things like that. But he had he's got a tremendous pull-up jumper, and really he improved his three. Obviously made some big shots down the stretch for Glasgow. So I think it's a really good fit for him as well.
Well, and you want to talk about work ethic. I mean, if you look back his sophomore year, I mean, he was a guy who wasn't really a shooter at all. He could score in the lane and get up shots and that kind
more
of stuff.
a driver, right?
Yeah, but I mean, last year he started working on that, and you could see it steadily improving. This year, heck of a jump shooter.
Yep.
Heck of a three-point shooter this year. I mean, he could shoot the three off the dribble, and he could shoot it, you know, on the catch and shoot.
Yeah, he's got a part of his game that a lot of people, it's kind of gone. To be honest with you, that little, it's probably his best shots, that pull-up 15-footer. And that's a lot of people don't have that anymore.
Well, you know, I mean, we talked about this on this show probably a few years ago. The fact that the drive and kick game, you know, three or layup game, left a whole area of the floor open for people to score in that used to be a traditional place to score with John Carter and even Abby. She would do that. But then in the NBA, we see some of these guys like we were talking about.
Brunson makes a lot of
Anthony Edwards can do that stuff. Yeah. We see a lot more of that coming back in the game and people taking advantage of that.
Right.
So it's good. I'm happy to see it come back. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah.
Little bit of Major League Baseball.
Okay.
The Reds aren't. They're 500.
Not playing very well.
Yeah.
No, they can't hit a lick. You know, just the opposite of the last couple of years when they were just they couldn't pitch but they could hit. Now one of the worst hitting teams in the league right now.
Yeah.
They've got injuries. Same old. Pitching's much better, but man, they're struggling.
This is a year also, I mean, at the beginning of the season, we talked about this. It looked like a good potential year for the Reds, like one that last year we kind of saw a turnaround after all the heat that the ownership took. And it looked like they were headed in kind of the model of the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, well, they lost two key players. McClain, their second baseman, played short last year, just a heck of a player.
Yeah.
He's out probably through July, maybe August, if he does come back this year. And then they lost the third baseman to the medication violation, who's out 80-day suspension.
Yeah.
And he was one of their better players. So, that's losing two key everyday players is a big loss.
Yeah. Certainly will hurt your hitting.
Yes.
And when I'm looking at the standings in MLB, I don't really see anybody kind of breaking out at this point of the season. I mean, do you see somebody who you feel like is
Dodgers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
they're loaded. I mean, their everyday lineup is tremendous. They're pitching. They got one of their better pitchers back, who's been out with the Tommy John.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore's really good. It's kind of under the radar team.
Yes.
I mean, they won close to 100 last year, so they shouldn't. They did win 100.
Yeah.
They're really, really good. I think Atlanta will be there too.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta's not off to their greatest start in the world, but they'll win 95 to 100 games.
Yeah. Is the Preakness coming up this Saturday?
That was this past Saturday.
See, that's how close I pay it.
Yeah, Mystic Dan, the Derby winner, ran second.
Okay. Well, and the only reason he even registered with me is because I saw that he was going to run, because originally they were not going to run him in the Preakness.
Well, no, he said, like all good trainers, they're going to wait and see how the horse comes out of it.
Okay, yeah, true.
And he came out of it fine, so they went.
Yeah. Who ended up winning the Preakness this weekend?
D. Wayne Lucas, 88-year-old trainer,
yes,
had two horses, and one of them called Seize the Gray went wire to wire.
Yeah, like I said, I was not paying attention whatsoever to the horse racing.
Well, we'll forgive you.
The Kentucky Derby was over with. My horse racing tune-in time was over with.
And the third leg of the Triple Crown in the Belmont will be 3 weeks from now.
Yeah. We've got the softball regionals.
Yes.
They wrapped up.
Chalk City.
Yes,
all favorites, pretty much. I think only maybe one team that was not in the top 16.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that won, to be honest with you. I think it was Baylor.
Yeah.
But it is, chalk. The best teams are playing each other. No real upsets at all.
Yeah. Now, I think, did Liberty win the first game against Georgia, but then they ended up getting knocked out of it?
That's correct.
And which is kind of interesting because, I mean, my son and I were talking about this. My son was like, look, Liberty shouldn't even have been there. So, and I mean, we discussed this last week on here, how they ended up getting the bid versus WKU with that single elimination championship game. And then the baseball conference
tournament start this week. That's right. I think WKU's playing down. I think it's down in Louisiana.
Yep. All right. It's Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.